how about now? Can you hear me now? I bet you can hear me now because I hit the wrong stream button on the Stream Deck. Ah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Or ma'am, whichever you are. Yeah, sorry. Got the Stream Deck set up on Sunday. So, hey, everybody. Thanks for coming along and joining me here. For those of you that missed on Sunday, I was testing my hardware, got everything set up. I put a bunch of buttons in the Stream Deck so I could automate all this stuff. And I have a button that turns the mic on and off, and I instantly hit it when I was trying to get the music to go down a little bit quieter. And I muted myself. That's terrible. So what the heck does Android have to do? We'll start out with, one, thank you everybody for joining. Two, since you missed my rant about it being hot outside, hey, stay cool. I live in Alabama in the U.S., and it's about, I think the heat index is 104 degrees, which is like 40 degrees Celsius if you're over in Europe or in one of the countries outside of the U.S. that uses regular good ways of doing temperatures, using the decimal system. 40 degrees Celsius or 140 degrees is hot. It's really hot. You're going to melt out there. So stay hydrated, my friends. And we're programmers. We like to stay inside anyways, right? So what is this Android app I have going coming up on the screen have anything to do with SwiftUI and what we're about to build today? Well, I'll tell you. I work for a company named Couchbase. They're a pretty cool company. We build a mobile database product, and I built an expense reporting app in Android for them in Kotlin using Jetpack Compose, and that was used for the basis of our education certification program we have for being a mobile developer on Android. And I would like to build that same app in SwiftUI, but I'd like to make it cooler because SwiftUI has all kinds of cool things that I wouldn't say Jetpack Compose doesn't have, but just Apple does things differently. We have things like Split View that I really want to use because I think that's going to provide an awesome tablet experience. So I want to kind of get those kind of things in. But in order to show you what we're going to build, I either have to have some designs, like mock-ups I usually like to have, so somebody passes over like a Figma or a sketch file, and then I can go off that and kind of code it. But if I have to like build something out of my brain, that's usually a lot harder because you end up doing revision after revision after revision because you don't like anything ever, right? Well, if you have it already pre-written down, it's a lot easier to code. So my advice as developers is that if you're an indie developer, you're out there, you want to build an app, design it first. Go get yourself, I don't even care if you draw it on a napkin. Draw your app out first and get it to the point where you know what you want it to look like, then start coding it. I promise you it will go much better for you. And in fact, my rule of thumb, the real cool, is that you should only spend about 50% of your time developing, writing code. The other 50% should be done in the design process, making sure you're doing the right things, checking your code, all the things that comes along with the maintenance of code, not just physically writing it. So this Android app, I'm going to go ahead and use some cheat codes I know in it. So for example, I hate typing in username and passwords on emulators. I bet you do too. So what I do is I hard-coded the image. So if you click on it twice, it automatically puts in the default username and password in for you. Why? Because I don't like typing in stuff. I'll just be honest with you. That sounds terrible. Here's the next thing I did, which is always kind of interesting. As a developer, and when I'm building sample applications, I like to have a developer screen. And so I have a developer screen in this one, and what it does is it allows me to load just a bunch of sample data. But if you look here, if I go back to this home screen, there's nothing there, and I can go and click this home button or this add button and add a bunch of data in order to like generate it to show off the app or even like test it and stuff. That's a lot of time on my hands. Why can't I just do this like load sample thing and just tell it to just load data for me and have it automatically just generate a bunch of expense reports that I can then go through and validate my UI works? Why wouldn't I do that? That sounds like it's a good idea, right? So a lot of times when I build mobile apps, I do these kind of things to help myself out. So I can write unit tests against it. Let's see here. I got some messages coming in from the Discords. I truly believe that, so we're going to use ChatGPT and we're going to use a combination of ChatGPT. We're going to use a combination of GitHub Copilot. And I believe this is probably the future for developers. It ain't going to replace us anytime soon, but what it's probably going to do is make it finding like how to fix some code way easier. Way easier. Because you can ask it specific things and it usually comes back pretty decent. So that's what we're going to work on today. So what I wanted to point out is we have a menu over here, right? If we think about this application, this is a 3-tier navigation pattern. We have a navigation here, this bar here that kind of flies out. That's usually like Some people call this a hamburger menu. Other people, like designers, if you talk to them, they'll call that an overflow menu. What that means is it overflows off the screen because of the fact they can't fit everything on the screen. And so we have an overflow menu or hamburger menu that pops out. We have our expense reports, and then when we click on one, we can see the details of that. You'll see this expense report looks like somebody was putting in some costs for internet access and some furniture, some office equipment, some photocopying they did, some computer. They bought a computer for under $1,000. I don't know how they did that. It's in the car mileage. So they must have did a trip somewhere. This is all, of course, randomly generated data that I just wrote something that automatically generates the data so that I could see the UI and I could test my UI because, once again, like I said earlier, I'm a lazy developer. I'd rather have something just generate the data for me and then I could test it versus me typing out things over and over again. We're going to try to build this in SwiftUI. So that's our goal today, right? So now that we got the Android thing all taken care of and taken a look at, and of course, this code, if you're ever interested, here's a thing for you, all you Swift developers out there. You are 85% a Kotlin developer. Because Kotlin looks so much like Swift. If you ever wanted to change sides, or if you needed to change sides, say for example, there's just a job opportunity out there and they're looking for an Android developer and you're without work. Hey man, I'm just here to tell you that Jetpack Compose and SwiftUI look a lot alike. When I say a lot alike, it's a scary amount that they look a lot like. You know, if I go to like, these are some components I built, but if we go to just the expense list view, this would be the actual view for it. You'll see here, it's just a function. And of course, instead of using FUNC, we just use FUN. We have this function, we pass in a bunch of things into it, and it has a theme associated with it and then a surface, but basically here it checks the view model for some data and then it just draws some code. And here is the actual draw code. And so they have something called lazy columns, very, very similar to our horizontal and vertical stack layouts in SwiftUI. And you can very quickly get used to it. They also have modifiers just like SwiftUI, so you can just hit, modifier period, add padding, all those kind of things. These two things are kissing cousins when it comes down to it, in my opinion. So just so you know, everything in Kotlin and Jetpack Compose, I took from the knowledge I had in SwiftUI when I learned Jetpack Compose, and I was able to pick it up pretty fast. Am I the world's best Compose developer? Probably not, because I don't do it a lot, and if you don't do it a lot, you're not going to be good at it. But that's where that kind of sits. So I put the code that we did on Sunday out on GitHub. And by the way, this is that Android version of the app. If you're curious about it, I'll throw links out in chat here real quick. And so if you're just kind of curious, if you want to bookmark that, put a favorite to it, look at the code later, you're more than happy to do that. And then this is the code I did on Sunday night when we were kind of hanging out and doing it. So if you want to follow along, or if you're just looking at that for some example code, that's great. We have our two friends here. So we have, for you all that are new to the stream, this is a plugin I'm using in Xcode. So I want to kind of give that out in chat also. This is a plugin that goes into Xcode that allows you to go use GitHub Copilot. And we'll play around with that a little bit today on our stream. It's kind of running over here, just doing its little business. On the last stream, I went through and set it up. It's not all that hard. The thing I will say is that you do have to, install this Copilot here, this language server, and you have to log into your GitHub account so that it knows that you have Copilot. Copilot's not free, and so it'll authenticate to your GitHub account, and it will link your GitHub account to this so that it can use the Copilot APIs. So that's one thing I will kind of throw out there. Is there other ways than this plugin of doing it? The answer is yes, there really is. Some people I've seen stream literally use VS Code, Visual Studio Code. And I could do that right now. Like, for example, I could just go into Open here, go into my developer folder, find my expense reporter code, go into the source here, and just open this. And it'll recognize Swift code. And I'm going to say, sure, I trust me because I am the author of it. And if I go into here, let me open up just a Swift file here. We'll go into our authentication that we have. You'll see here, I'm getting code syntax highlighting here. And the right here, this little icon down here, which is hard to see, that it says deactivate Copilot. Copilot's enabled right now. So it kind of works. The problem is it's not Xcode. And I'm going to just be honest with you. The experience of GitHub code or Visual Studio Code, not great compared to Xcode, if you ask me. It's not designed for Swift development. And so you're going to have just times where it doesn't do what you want it to do, or if you're used to Xcode, it's a jarring experience. And so that's my reason why I don't recommend using this, although you could. For example, I could just say here, quarter radius, I can just hit period, and here's all my methods that I have available. And you can see here I can scroll through them just like I would. Now, of course, it's cut off. Like, for example, see the text is cut off? Like in Xcode, we'd get a full description of this stuff. The experience is just different. And some people may like or hate that. I personally think Xcode for Swift developers is a better IDE. But if you're looking for some AI love, the Copilot is built into VS Code, and I'd be harming you if I did not tell you that that is an option. And it's free, and it runs on any platform, Windows, whatever. It does not mean that you could write Swift or mobile code on Windows. That is not possible because you still need Xcode, you still need the compiler. Finally, I've got ChatGPT open, and this is what we're going to use for our AI overlords. We're to ask it to help us write code. So let's get into it. We've been talking here for about 10 minutes. Let's get some code going and see what we can do here. So what I usually like to do is I literally left this alone. On Sunday, I left my laptop running. I left all the screens there. The only thing I did on this computer was check in the code to GitHub, and that was it. So we're going to build to try to remember where we are, because I honestly just don't remember where we left off on Sunday. So that's the first thing we probably should do, is build this thing and get it open on a simulator so we can see what's going on here. And I think it's going to the iPad. And if I remember right, what we had working was we had an authentication window that came up. It would ask for a username and password, and we would type something in, and then we would basically click an authenticate button, and it would just go through and authenticate us. And here we are. We have the Acme expense reporter. And I don't even remember the username and password, to tell you the truth. Let's take a look at what that is. So it's user@example.com and password. Let's copy that password because I'm kind of lazy about this. We should probably put a logo in and make that so that we can click on it like I showed you in the Android app, just simply so I don't have to type this in anymore. That'd probably make our app look a little bit more professional, right? Can I paste in here? Oh, it's a password field. Nope, I bet you I can't. I bet you I cannot insert in there because it's a password field. We'll just do the cheat thing. Let's move it off to the side here so I can type it in. My super secret password here, folks. So, and there we go. So, how did this magic work? Let's go through and recap a little bit so we can remember what we got going on. So, how this works is that we have, I like to call it the boss of the application. That's our expense report app. And our expense report app has something called a scene. If you're new to SwiftUI or you're just learning it, a scene is just like a piece of scenery, right? You can have multiple windows because SwiftUI works on Mac, it works on iPad, it works on all kinds of different platforms. Because it works on those different platforms, then you have to have the ability to have multiple windows. And in recent versions of macOS, they made it so you can group those windows together, and they have these tools like Mission Control, and there's another one which I can never remember the name of. That's this icon right here, Launchpad. Not Launchpad. There's another one. What the heck's that other one called? That allows you to basically group your applications together, and it gives you like a dock on the side of the screen. I can never remember what it's called, but that's Mission Control will show you like all your apps running here, right? Ooh, what's this? Sure, check automatically. That was interesting. I would have missed that if it wasn't for this. I don't remember what that feature is called. But anyways, I digress. There's a feature in macOS that allows you to basically get like a little dock on the side of the screen. And you can group your applications that way. And if you want to do that, that's great. But that's how window groups work. So we kind of need that in SwiftUI to be able to support those kind of things. So what I'm doing is I'm telling the boss of the application, the expense reporter app, hey, if I'm authenticated, I don't need to see the authentication window. Pop me into the content view, where all my code's going to live, my real application. Otherwise, we're going to go back to the authentication view, and we're going to use this authentication service, and its job is just to authenticate people. So we want separation of concern. That's in software development, if you're new to it or you haven't done it for a while and stuff, separation of concern, big deal. We want to be able to separate our stuff. We don't want everything just in one big view. Why? Well, because we can't test it. That's the first thing. We want to be able to eventually test this code right. We want to test that authentication service, make sure it's working right. The other thing we have to worry about is that if we have everything in one view, that's going to be a mess, the maintenance, right? You're going to have all this code in one file, and you may accidentally delete something by accident, and now it doesn't work. You don't remember. Now you're reverting your changes, trying to find what you did. You're your own worst enemy as a developer. I promise you this. Long term, you will learn this. So separating out your code is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So we basically want to give people jobs. That's how I think about software development, because that's how the real world works, right? If you think about it, you got a manager that's running the McDonald's, and the manager is managing some people. You got the fry guy that's making the fries at McDonald's. You got the burger guy making the burgers. And each one of these people, they may be able to switch jobs every now and then, but for the most part, if you want an efficient place, you got some people that have some knowledge. Like your HR person is going to do HR things. Your programmers are going to do programming. You don't have to ask your HR person to do programming. Well, no, because that's not their expertise. That makes sense. So our authentication services job is to basically authenticate people. Now, it's not a great thing here. We would probably like to switch this out eventually, because this is not secure at all, right? If you send this over to your tech lead, they're going to be really mad. You're hard-coding usernames and passwords and stuff like that. But more important, if we're going to make an expense report app, we need to know more about a user than their username and password. A user probably has all kinds of other information associated with them. Say, for example, if you're putting an expense report in and you work for a company, you probably have a department you're involved in, right? You're like in the engineering department, or maybe you're in QA, or you're in HR, like I said earlier, or you're part of sales or marketing. Regardless of that, usually your manager, which was in a certain department, will approve your expense report. So these are the kind of things, like when you log in, we would want to say, okay, who is this user? Which department are they in? Because when they do their expense report and then submit it, they have to submit it to somebody, right? And we should probably have some business logic that figures all that stuff out. Well, that means that we need to know something more about a user than just their username and password. So we'll probably have to build some models, and those models will have some knowledge about like what a user is and what, you know, departments they're in and all that kind of stuff. So that's what our authentication service does, and our app then basically injects that into our authentication view if needed. This, how this messaging works, for those that are new to it, is something called Combine. Combine is a message, well, it's more than a messaging framework, but it does messaging really well. It can handle things like state, and so this code right here is some Combine code. This is a framework from Apple, and if you have not used Combine, I highly recommend using it. It's pretty badass awesome. What I'm doing is I'm basically saying object will change, and so this is a observable object. Because of that, I can say I can now send messages if this object changes. We have a generic here. We're sending in void and never, and these are just part of the pass-through subject of like what we're going to pass in. These are just some defaults that are built in when you're using this API. You can actually put various types in there, but that's going to get into a little bit more complicated conversations. For us, all we care about is this one property right here is authenticated. You can see here that if we set it, we want to go through and say that we're sending the fact that this changed. And that's what Combine does. We're going to send a message that says, hey, this property changed. That means that automatically this expense reporter, when it sees that, when that changes, this code's going to run again. It's going to say, hey, this changed. And now it's going to check it and change the state automatically for us. It's pretty cool if you think about it. You don't have to worry about passing objects and variables, all that kind of stuff. It's a neat way of doing things. So that's why we're using Combine, and we'll probably use that more as we need to talk between views and stuff. So I alluded to this long enough. We would like to change, let's get the canvas out of here for right now because we don't need that. We'd like to change this view right here. All we have is a hello world. I mean, don't get me wrong, hello world's pretty cool, but really, I like side split view. And UI split view in the UI kit world gives us the ability to have that 3-column approach. Let's go look on the iPad here if I can get my mouse back on the right computer. I have universal control enabled, and I'm streaming from my laptop. And the problem is I switched between the desktop and the laptop, and it's getting caught a little bit here. But let's see here. I'm gonna go in real quick here to find the Notes app. Is the Notes app a good example? Let's go ahead and click OK. Continue here. We have 3 panes here. This is split view. We have a pane here on the left, that's our navigation. We have a bunch of notes here, and then we have the actual content here. So this is like 3 different panes that we have going on here. This is what I kind of like in this app. I'd like that view I showed you earlier in the Android app where we had the overflow menu over here. That's going to be our main navigation. And then where I have a list of my expense reports right here, and then when they click on one of the expense reports, it's going to come over here. And I think that that's a pretty cool experience. Now, of course, if you're on a mobile phone, what ends up happening, as you all know, is this automatically just gets hidden. And this detail also gets hidden, and all you get is this one field right here. And then, obviously, when you click on one of these, it would give you the detail. And that's all magic. That's SwiftUI magic. And that's why we want to use SwiftUI, because it is that magical. So that's the UI we're going to try to figure out how to create today. We're going to ask our AI overlords to help us with some assistance on that. So let's close the notes now that we have a good idea what's going on there. Let's call up our AI overlords. And we're going to just tell it, I'd like to have a new view that basically uses a split view. So, and we want it to be, I want to say that it's a navigation split view, what it's called. Now, here's the thing about talking to ChatGPT. You have to give it some pretty good information, otherwise it's not going to write good code for you. That's the first rule. If you just say, give me a 3-pane view for iPad that works with mobile, you're probably not going to like the answer you get. But if you know enough information to be dangerous, just like in Google when you search, or excuse me, Stack Overflow, if you know enough information to be dangerous when you search that, your results will be way better. So we're going to say, hey, can you give me an example of a view that uses navigation split view to show off 3 panels of information. The sidebar should be in a separate view that has a navigation menu. And I spelled the word separate wrong. Fix that real quick here. The content view should be a separate view. A view that shows content. And the detail view should be a separate view that shows content based on what was tapped in the content view. Let's see what our AI overlords can do. Now remember, I talked about this on Sunday. Our AI overlords have only been trained since I think it's September of 2022. So the problem is that if we go down this road, it's not all that intelligent. It doesn't know the latest API changes. It doesn't know about things like macros, for example. So the code examples it's going to give you is only as good as its knowledge of what it was trained on, the models it trained on. So in here, what it's looking like it's doing is it's going to use books for an example, which honestly, that's not a bad thing per se. I mean, I'm not looking for it to do everything for me, but I think we could probably go through and make this work for us. So we can see here we have a sidebar, we have categories, and we're making a list of categories. That's actually pretty cool. We have another content view that's given a list of books, and then we have our detail view. And then of course it's saying here, pop this in. Well, folks, let's see how our AI overlords have done for us. Let's first off start with the book. Now, I want it to be an expense report eventually, but honestly, for right now, just to see if we can get this navigation working to see how well the code's written, we can just cut and paste what we have here right now. So let's go here and grab the book and bring it into our Xcode and bring that in. So let's go here. We'll make a new folder for this. I like to keep my code kind of grouped together well, so we'll call this models. And then here we'll make a new file. So we'll go file, new file. We're going to go through and make a new Swift file. We'll call this I'm going to call it expenses, even though it's not expenses, right? But I know eventually I want to have something called an expense report. That way I don't have to make another new file later. I can just change the contents of this one because I am once again lazy. And we'll just make this book right now. That seems like it's pretty good. Let's go ahead and close some of these windows too. We don't need this. What we will need is the content view eventually. Because we'll have to change that. But let's go back. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back over here and grab our sidebar view. So here's our sidebar. We'll do the same thing here. We're going to go back to SwiftUI, or excuse me, Xcode. And let's make a group folder called views, because I like to keep my views all together. So let's call this views. And we'll make a new view. We'll call this new. I can just right click and save the file. New file. Let's add in a SwiftUI file this time. We'll call this sidebar view for lack of originality. And you'll see here, this is a macro, right? So its code, it didn't know about the macro system. So it's not going to give you the preview. So if we go look back at that 1 second here. Let's go look at that code. If you look here, that view, it's not, there's no preview for this. And once again, it doesn't even know if there's a newer version of Swift syntax, so that maybe makes this easier. That's just some of the problems we're going to have here with it. So let's see here. It's saying that we have a categories of strings, and it's saying a short list here. So how does it get the categories though? Let's look at here. Here's a sidebar. It says categories, string body for categories and category, and then it has a navigation title. But I don't see it where it gives the sidebar that, or does it do it inside of the view? We're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah, here we go. So it's doing it inside of here. So it passes the categories in. All right. Let's check and see what Xcode says about this very first view that we have and see how well it thinks that it is. So let's see here. It's complaining. Cannot find sidebar view in scope because it didn't call it sidebar view. It's not just because there's a naming conflict here, right? Where we have... oh, and then because our preview, we know that we're going to pass stuff in. So once again, our AI overlords don't know a lot about this app right now. So because they don't know a lot about this app, they don't know that we're going to pass in a category. So we'll just pass one in. Let's say fiction. And by theory here, that should meet the parameters. Let's see here. What's it complaining about now? Oh boy, do I have to do this magic here to tell it that it's an array? Let me see here. What did it do over here? I think that's JavaScript or C# code for array. Oh, yeah, it needs to be categories like this. Let's grab this syntax and bring it back over. Named here, and we'll just do it just like that, just like they did it. And that should get this from working. So what do we got here now? What's it complaining about here? Argument passed to the call takes no arguments. Yes, because our content view is currently probably named wrong, right? Because our content view is really the main view that gets called, which we probably don't want to call it that. Let's fix that right now before we get any further here. So first, let's move it over into our views folder here so that we have it with our rest of our views. And let's rename this. So we should be able to go through and right click and say refactor, rename. Kind of important that you refactor. Oh geez. That's weird. That's weird. I've never seen it do that before. Let's try that again. This could be an Xcode bug, beta bug. I think we have a beta bug. The reason why you want to refactor rename, because then any place that code exists, it will do it. I don't think this is going to work. I want to call this main view. Let's do this and try to... maybe I have a bug with the VI plugin. No. Look at that. It does not... If I right-click on it, it doesn't let me do it. Huh. Well, I know the spots where it is, so I can just kind of fix this here. I'll say this is main view here. And then I know that in the app that we call main view here also. So we'll have to swap that out, and that should fix it. Now what should happen is we should be able to rename this file main view. And let's see here. All right, we should have a main view now because we want to have content view be. Here's how it goes, right? In the world of split view, we want to try to keep the names that Apple has in the API so that we don't get confused. If another developer is looking at this code, that if we call content view something and it does something different, then that's going to be confusing to a developer. Just like the sidebar. The sidebar view, if you know the split navigation pattern, you're like, well, okay, that makes sense to me. That's a sidebar. So that's where that probably sidebar is. And the same thing with detail view, right? These things, we don't want to change the name of these because it's going to change. We're just not going to be able to use this properly, right? So that's a bad thing. So let's see here. We're going to then, so now we got sidebar view working. And let's see here. This should stop complaining. It's only complaining now because we don't have a content view. So we need to create that. So let's go through and create our new file, our new SwiftUI view. And this is going to be our content view. Put it in our views folder. There's our content view. And now our sidebar should be less angry. Let's see here. What's it saying here? So content view doesn't take any code. Well, that's because we haven't grabbed it from GitHub yet, or from our ChatGPT robot overlords. Let's take a look here at our AI overlord and see what it says. So this is what it says to do with content view. We'll just grab the whole entire thing. We'll bring it into our app and see how well it works. Let's go into our content view here. We're not going to delete our macro there for preview. And it looks like it takes in a category, right? And so let's just add in a category here. Does it take in just one category? It's just a string. So we can just say now fiction. And that should... do I have to put category, really? Okay, no, it's good. Is it? Oh. I have to do a name parameter. And let's see here. No, that should work. So let's see here. Oh, now this is bad because we have detail view. So our code's moving along here, right? Because we now know that here it's saying we don't have detail view, and we wanted to create detail view also. So let's do that real quick. We'll make another SwiftUI view. Let's call this detail view. And boom, 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 boom. There's our detail view, but we got to go back to our overlords here and find out what they say to do with detail view. So here's our detail view. It takes in a book, which ours is going to be different. It's going to take in an expense report, but no, scrolling work, please. All right, there we go. Let's grab this and get this into Xcode and see what happens now. So let's go into here, get our detail view. And it's a book, and this should work. And now the only problem is that we have to take a book in, so we have to make a new book. That book equal book. I think I could just say ID blah title. And what's the last one? What am I missing here? Author. Oh, hey, looks. So Copilot. This window here, for those of you that are new, this is the Copilot integration. Hey, there's a copy code button. Oh, is there really? Hey, Matt, welcome. I did not know that. So this is the Xcode plugin that I installed earlier. Copilot for Xcode. This is the plugin for Copilot coming in and saying, hey, this is what you probably want to do. So let's go ahead and just do that, and it should automatically make that code for me. Let's see if it's mad now. Oh, so it's saying that the ID is an integer. I didn't write this code, so that makes sense. I didn't even look at the book to see what it was. And so now the only thing we have to do is just say our book here is going to be a type book. And that should fix the macro here. And the results of detail view is never used. Well, that's not 100% true. Because we're going to use it in content view, because content view should bring up a detail view. So that's right. Let's see here. That's right. What's the sidebar is still mad for some reason. Oh boy. So we're running the beta version of Xcode here because we wanted to play eventually with this new virtual reality thing that Apple has called the Pro Vision. And the only way to do that is you have to use the beta. So let's see what it's mad about here. It's mad because we have an extra set of brackets there. I need to get a linter installed so that that stuff goes away. Let's see here. I don't see our Xcode being mad. It's just a little mad in detail view here because it says that the results of detail initializer is unused. I think what it wants to... I think what it's asking for is this. See if it's still mad now. Nope. Yeah, so basically we just put the initializer inside of the call. By doing that, we're not making an extra pointer on the stack, right? That's going to go to the heap. This is going to keep our memory clean. So that logically makes sense to me why we would put it in there instead of having a let and actually, using up a pointer with memory here. Let's take a look at Canvas here. So Canvas in Xcode is the ability to kind of get a preview of what our code would look like if it's generated. So for example, in detail view, this should give us a pretty good idea of what the detail view looks like. And usually the nice thing about this is you don't have to actually debug it, throw it on a simulator to see it. You have a pretty good idea, is your view working the way you want it to work? So that makes sense here. So we have a title and author. Let's go to content view and check it. Looks like we have 2 books. And then the sidebar view should hopefully have our sidebar for there. Awesome. All right, this is looking pretty great. Let's go ahead and kill the canvas because we only have so much screen real estate. So now the only difference is that we need to go through and look at our overload. Oh yeah, Matt's right. Yeah, thanks, buddy. I didn't realize there was a copy code button here. I'm just going to grab that and click it. So we don't want all this code though. That's the only problem here. What we want is this code right here. We're going to put this in our main view, okay? Because our app, we have something that sits above it that tries to handle authentication versus non-authentication. So, we're doing our app a little bit different. We didn't tell our robot overloads. If there's a way to copy paste, I'm going to find it. That's a good motto to live by, my friend. That's a very good motto to live by. We're going to go back into main view because remember, we in our app, we have this whole code that's going to try to figure out whether or not the user is authenticated. This is our security model here, right? We talked about this on Sunday a little bit, Sunday night. If you're building enterprise applications, a lot of times InfoSec is going to want to have some kind of like big brick wall between your app functioning and not functioning. If a user can't get in, then they don't get to see any of the cool stuff. You want to have a very clear line of security, and by doing this, you don't have to necessarily worry about the InfoSec people being mad. So we don't want to mix and match that code. We want to make it very clear our intent by making these in separate files. That way we don't incidentally have some kind of security risk going on here. And that's one of the main reasons I write code like this, because I used to get beat up by InfoSec all the time. Oh man, it was a bloodbath. So let's see here. Oh, also remember this from I'm getting back to use to Xcode again. So it is Command A on the Mac and then Command I think it is. One of our folks in chat told me how to reformat. Nope, that's the build. What is the reformat in the editor again? Nope. We don't want to cold fold it. We want to go through and tell it to re-lint the file. Somebody in chat, if you remember how to do this, I'll take suggestions. It's been a while since I've used Xcode, so I don't remember the keyboard shortcut for this. Where is the re-layout? It's definitely not navigation. It's not fine. It's always an editor. But where is my selections here? I don't want to split my lines. Valence, delimiters. None of this seems right. I don't want to fold. My coloring's working right. I'm not sure. I don't remember that. I thought it was I, but I is building, so that's obviously not it. Was it P? That's the print. That's not it either. All right. Well, I will probably have to install SwiftLinter and Swift Format. Those are 2 tools. Swift Format's made by Apple. SwiftLinter is made by a team we're not going to talk about right now. They're good guys, but a good team. But let's see here. It's saying it can't find sidebar because it's called sidebar view. We called our code a little bit different than what our AI overlords called it. That should fix it. All right, let's go ahead and try to build this and see what happens. Because I think we have enough information where our Acme expense reporter is going to come into action here. So let's see here. User at, what was it, example.com. And then we're going to cheat, because we always like to cheat. We're going to find our authentication service and look at its password there, because I made it super secure, but something I'll never remember in 100 years. Let's see here. Get back to our simulator. Move it over so we can see that. And because this is a password field, we can't just copy and paste it in, because our Apple overlords will tell you that that's not a secure thing you should do. We can use the little eye icon thanks to ChatGPT. It will show you the password that you typed in, which is pretty neat. We had it generate some code for that, and it looks like we're working here. We'll see here we have a title here. This is our detail. Now, of course, we're not drawing the line for it, but you can see here, this is our split view. And we'll see here if we select book 1, we're there. If we select book 2, we should get book 2's information. Now, if we were to move this over, we should get all the navigation structure on the iPad. And I just happen to know this because I've been doing iPad development for quite a long time. Now, of course, our view over here has got some issues here, right? Because it's not respecting the bounds that were got set. So when we flipped horizontally from vertically, now the problem is that when we redrawed, we didn't take a look to say, hey, the margin on the screen's changed, which this should recenter. But once again, we didn't ask it to do any of that stuff, so it gave us the bare minimum code. This is another thing about ChatGPT we have to remember, is that it's not necessarily great. But if we look here, our categories are working, this is working, and this is working. We're looking like we're pretty good here, right? So we've got at least a structure that we can start playing around with, in my opinion. Our, I know so many overlords, right, Matt? But yeah, so we've got a navigation structure, I'll say in this, and that's the goal in UI development. I try to get like a foundation built. Think of building an app like building a building. If you have a bad foundation, your building's going to fall apart the first storm that comes through. If you have a solid foundation, you're going to survive pretty much for years and years and years. There's houses that have been around for hundreds of years in like New England, for example, right? Because their foundations were really solid. The materials they built it out was really solid. So we want to start with the basics, which is get our structure figured out for our iPad and our mobile phone, make sure it works on both, make sure that we can navigate and everything works good. And then once we do that, then we can start bolting in all the stuff that we want to bolt on and make this right. So that's the goal of this. And once again, like I said earlier, if you tell ChatGPT to try to do everything on the box, you're probably going to have a pretty bad experience. Now, I need this user authentication for more reasons than just to have that page and to emulate security. Technically speaking, when we want to sync this data between our mobile app and the cloud, we're going to need a username and password to do that with. And so that's a reason why, a second reason why we need this whole authentication server stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to make this mobile app have the data locally, but it can sync dynamically. So whenever the network connection comes on, it's just going to sync the information. Here's the beautiful thing. You'll never call a REST API. You don't have to call any REST APIs. I know for like, if you're a web developer, you're like, wait, what? What do you mean you're not calling REST APIs? You don't have to. With the world of mobile databases, you don't have to make a single REST API call. REST APIs suck. I'm going to be honest with you. Everyone's going to say, whoa, 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 step back here. What are we talking about here? REST APIs are like universal. They are, but calling them is hard on a mobile device because of offline. Think about how much code you have in your mobile app to try to figure out, is the network available? You know, we obviously in Apple's world, we have the reachability framework. And reachability is going to allow you to see if you can reach something. If you can reach this REST API, then call it. Otherwise, you're going to have to bring some kind of error message up. All that code adds up in the end, and every screen is going to have it because every screen is going to have some kind of data on it, right? This just becomes super painful. And detecting whether or not the network may be available, but it's so slow you can't get the data back. This also, it's just, all these things are terrible experiences. But if we have a mobile database and we don't have to do this work, once again, we can just pass the buck to say, hey, you other thing here that knows how to talk and sync cloud databases and stuff, you do all that work for me. Well, geez, that sounds like the perfect garden I want to live in. Let's go through and start doing that then. So we don't want expenses anymore, right? We looked at that and we're building we have books. That's what our AI overlords gave us. But really, that's not what we want. We want expense reports. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I told you earlier, I already have written this app a while back in Kotlin. And so now we're going to do something really pretty interesting. I'm going to ask our overlords to take the report code that I have, just this one right here, and I'm going to ask it if it will convert it to Swift for me and see what it does. This is another thing that I don't know what's going to happen, but in the world of our AI overlords and being super smart, could it do that? I don't know the answer to that. Can you convert this Kotlin code to a Swift we'll see it to Swift code. We won't tell it a class or strut. We'll see whether or not our AI overlords are smart enough to tell us which one that should be. Sure. So it's using a class instead of a strut. Let's see if there's a reason why it needs to use that. So I'm looking at the data types here. Okay, so we do have a manager, which I didn't give it the manager field. Oh boy. And so let's see here. Declare as an int64. So what's it declaring as an int64 here? Let's take a look and see. The report date. It doesn't know about date times. So, yeah, I know. So much boilerplate. Well, in Kotlin, you don't have to do the init code. So in Kotlin, we have something where the constructor will automatically initialize anything. So you basically never have to do a property. If you put it in your constructor, it automatically makes the property, the public properties for you, and the private setters. And so then the only thing that really happens here is that in Kotlin, date time is a little bit funky how it works. And there's a bunch of code here that actually converts it over. And also I do a bunch of things for copying the code to make, and converting to JSON and stuff, because Kotlin it's just Kotlin. And serialization is a little weird right now in Kotlin. Most people use something called JSON, G as in Google, Sun, and that's Google's library, but it's not, it's a Java library. So there's a Kotlin library, but it's not 100% compatible with everything. The world of Kotlin's a little strange because of the Java and Android world, and Google kind of get rid of Java, but not 100%. And on Android, it still runs in the JVM. But anyways, the point is that this is wrong. We don't need to use an int64 here. We could use a timestamp or a date time variable. Let's start with the most basic thing here. We know the report is going to have have most of this stuff. So let's see here. Why do we have a let on report ID though? Okay, so report ID would never be able to be changed, right? Var string could need to be. All right, I get what we're cooking here. Let's go ahead and just get some of this code, cut it in, and then we'll dissect it inside of Xcode. All right, Matt told us that we have the copy code button here. Why are we not using the copy code button? Let's save ourselves a little break here. Let's get the book replaced out with this, and see if we can. We're gonna make this identifier right away, and this is for things like serialization and stuff. Let's see here. So we don't have a manager. We know we're gonna have to make that, so let's go ahead and make a new file. Call it manager. We'll just make a struct call that. And that should at least get us that off our back for right now. So you should be able to find type manager, Swift, or Xcode. Stop being a jerk. All right, there it goes. All right, let's take a look here and see if we understand why certain things are set the way they're set. So in Swift, a let is a static, which means we can't change it. A report is going to be a document, and that's going to be a document ID, we call it. And we don't want to be able to make changes to our document ID once we set it. So having a let there, that logically makes sense to me. A var name means that you can change the name of the report. And an end user probably be able to change the name of the report if they wanted to. So that makes sense that it's going to be a var, because we may have passed in the report to a screen, an editor screen that allows them to change this data. And so because of that, we're going to pass that object. Well, if we have a let, they can't change it. The problem is I think description is going to be a var also. Now, here's an interesting conversation about the let is complete. If we think about this for a second, we have to think about state management. Do we want the ability for a user to be able to change this? Or is this basically something that when we set it, some business rules run and then we get a new version of it? That is an interesting question to ask. And usually we'll have something called like a data access object or a data transformation object, depending on what you're trying to do. And a data access object would have the business rules of checking whether or not this thing really is complete. And so what ended up happening is that you'd call a method that says complete the expense report. And when we call that function or method, we'd have some business logic that runs so that basically the UI could never change its property. Instead, we call something, and it's its job to run the business logic. Say, can you really complete this expense report? Because there may be a bunch of things we need to check, like, hey, did they attach a receipt to the expense report? You know, if there's no picture of attachment, then you can't complete this expense report. That would make logical sense to me, right? So if we allow the user to say that, though, that means that somehow it could basically override, the UI could somehow override our business logic of saying that, no, in order to change the completeness of an expense report, you have to run through all these rules. We're going to keep it as a static right now, as a let. And if we need to, we'll change this, but I have a feeling that that's going to be better for us long term. The document type should never be changed, so we're going to do a let on that. And we're going to need to use document type. I'll get into a second why. Well, I can just explain it now. We're going to be using Couchbase Lite 3.1. 3.1 is a pretty awesome version of the database. Now, it has support for scopes and collections. And think of these like containers. Like, think of it like a file cabinet. Oh boy. I'm now starting to think nobody knows what a file cabinet is anymore, do they? How many people even go to an office and say there's a file cabinet? What the heck's a file cabinet? How can I give an analogy of this without using file cabinets? Because that's always how I used to explain like multi-dimensional arrays, was saying you have a file cabinet, you open a file door, and inside of it you have some folders. You pull the folders out, and then you have some piece of paper in it. That's like a multi-dimensional array in many ways, or a matrix, right? That's how scopes and collections work, kind of. You have a bucket, and that's the file cabinet. You have a drawer that you pull out, and that's your scope. And then inside there, you have a collection, which is a folder. Inside of it, you got a bunch of documents you can store. That's the analogy of how the database works. And the problem, though, is that our cloud product, Couchbase Capella, does not support syncing with mobile apps that use multiple scopes and collections yet. That's something we're working on, but it's not there yet. And so because of that, we have to use just one folder for our one drawer and one folder for all of our documents. But we have many different types of documents. So we'll have to use a field to track which one of those are. And we'll put something called an index on it. Matt says, what is Custoda? Oh boy, there's some history there. I used to work at an accounting firm I worked at two different accounting firms in my career. One of them was in 2006 until 2009. When I worked at that accounting firm, it was in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I worked with a guy named Kevin Teamy. And I was one of the few developers they had on staff, and I also was the DBA, and I did a bunch of other things because we're a pretty small company. So you're one of the developers, you're kind of the developer lead. You're also making sure all the database servers work because you're so small, you don't have a DBA. We had a bunch of different stuff. Anyways, Kevin said that one day I was going on a rant about they did some stuff with some virtual machines and database servers and didn't tell me about it, and then a bunch of things went down, and I was kind of upset about it. I was like, you can't just take things down without telling people about it. And eventually he said, okay, Custoda, we get your point. And then everyone stood around and was like, what's Custoda? He says, you're Custoda. It's a combination of George Costanza and Yoda. He's like, you have the intelligence of Yoda, but the attitude of George Costanza. And I went, huh, okay. And then they all they laughed about it, and they started calling me Custoda. For years, I had this as a nickname, and so then I couldn't get rid of it. So it's something that just kind of stuck for a very long period of time. So there's a lot of, if you look for me online, you either will see Bayazal, you'll see Custoda. Just nicknames from companies I've worked at. I do like to rant a lot, so I can totally understand where the whole Custoda thing comes in. So let's see here. Document types, that's what we're talking about. So document types give us the ability to kind of sort information in a database and be able to find it quicker because we put something called an index on it. And I know mobile developers, you don't know a lot about databases. You're like, hey, wait, Aaron, this seems like a lot. It's not really if you think about it, right? We just want the ability to find expenses, like these reports. We want to say, I only want to find a report. I don't care about people or anything else in the database. Just give me a report. Well, if we put an index on it, it makes it faster to find that. It makes it so it's almost, I wouldn't say instantaneous, but if we don't put an index on it, what it does is, say, for example, you have 100 documents in the database. If you don't have an index on it, it's going to look at every single document and say, is that a report? Is that a report? Is that a report? And you may have to go through all the 100 of those documents just to find that one that you're looking for. That's not awesome, right? So we want to have a document database so that we can, in the document database, we want to have an index so we can find that information so it's fast. Now, report date is something that we're going to ask about here because that's wrong. Let's tell ChatGPT that's wrong. So we're going to say, hey, ChatGPT. That was the which class here? That was the report class, right? Let's just go into report here and say, can you update the report class to make the report date field a date field that uses do I care if it's backward compatible? Do I care if it's backward compatible with the Kotlin code? Technically speaking, probably not. We should probably do this the Apple way, right? Because that's what you guys are used to doing here. We'll just say a date type field. A field to make the report field store date time values. Yep, so it says to use the date field, and that makes sense here. So let's see what it says. It's probably going to just say use date instead. In .NET, for the amount, we'd use currency, like decimal, for example. But in Swift, I'm going to say that I'm almost positive that the double is the good equivalent to that. I'm trying to think here. You would still keep your precision, and you wouldn't have to worry about losing that. So let's remove this int 64, so that's a date. Now the problem is that it's going to be really mad here when we go to initialize it here by default. We'd have to say date dot now. I think it is. Is it now? Yeah. ChatGPT's or Copilot saying that it's the now property that will give us the now. All right, let's see here. We need the same thing with update date. So let's fix that too while we're at it. We'll say update date, and we'll do the same thing. And we'll change this out here to be the same thing. And now we have both. Now it's not a property. So ooh, here's where I use the Copilot to tell me now it's not a static property. Let's go back here. Can you tell me how to get the current date and time in Swift? Once again, ChatGPT is pretty great. Is it this the answer to like the replacement for Google? Possibly. So let's see here. So it's saying just call date, and date will just give it to you. You don't even need it. That's pretty badass. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Do we need a formatter right now? Yeah. I think we could take the default format for right now, and we'll put a note in our code here that we may have to put this formatter in. Oh, darn it! I'm never gonna remember Matt's tip here he has for cutting this code out. Let's put this up here. We'll just put some comments in. Might need to format dates. And that way I don't have to remember how this is. We'll put to-do on this so that we know that that's a to-do on it. And now what we should be able to do is just say date time with the constructor call, and that should just give us the current date. And that'll be good enough here to see if we can get this running on the screen. All right. And let's see if Xcode can catch up to my typing. Expected a... that is a comma. Why is it saying unnamed parameters? No, we are using this. Don't tell me that we're not using it. That's what that usually means. Let me check the previous field. The previous field has a comma. I think this is a beta. We're using the Xcode beta. I think this is a beta problem. I bet you anything if we go to build for running, and build this, I bet you that error goes away. Nope, it does not. Well, we'll fix book later, but it's still saying there's an issue here. Let's see here. But yeah, it doesn't find the date issue here. Let the equals date. Let's go to Google for this. And see if ChatGPT is just wrong. Swift get current date. No, we don't want to use NS date. See, this is the problem with Stack Overflow. Here's the updated answer for Swift 3. We're on Swift 5.9, which is usually Hacking with Swift is one of the best websites out there. So he says date now. That's what I thought. That's really weird. Why didn't that work earlier then, though? Let's go back to here and just say no. Because earlier we tried now and it didn't work. Was it because we did it as a function call instead of a property? I wonder if that's what I had in the code. I bet you that's what happened because I'm so used to using function calls. Nope. Oh, that's because it's a comma missing. Now is it saying wrong? It's still saying that date is not a static type. Oh. Okay. I get what you're cooking here now. It needs a reference pointer. This should fix it. Nope, it does not. Why is it freaking out about daytime now here? It's saying it's not static. Is this what we need? So we basically tell it to make one and then put it on the stack. Yeah, I didn't think that either. So why is Hacking Swift saying that this is right too? You know what? I think we're about done screwing around with Xcode. I think we're just going to go directly to the Swift docs and find the answer to this. When your AI overlords cannot help you, the docs will. So let's just go to and Swift and resources and I want the actual documentation. And we need to search for a date. Date? Well, that's great. Let's see here. Protocol extensions. The search is not finding it. Function types, annotations. We already know all that. I'm just looking for the API for. Let's just do this. Can't believe it's taking this long just to find the freaking date struct to find out what's going on with this. Let's look for now. So they have an overrider, operator override. Here we are. Yeah. It says it's the equivalent of calling date. The constructor, the init. So you could do either or. So why is Xcode beta freaking out then? Because that's what I originally was doing. Wait. Oh. Guys, I'm an idiot. Is that what we have going on here? Because we can't set it because it's not a pointer? Come on, Xcode. Now I'm back to the error I got earlier where you need a separator. Fix. Fix. What is it saying here? Wait, what? Boy. Oh, I have no idea what it's doing there. That is not right. Let's try to build and just see if it builds. Before running. Expected separator here. What do I want to do about this? So according to the Apple documentation, it says that this is legal. I have it set to a date on both these. I've tried both the constructor and the non-constructor. Change the order, see whether or not it's just the ID issue. Did all the things I could do, but it's still saying it's expecting. And no matter what I look online, they say that the syntax is right. Everybody's saying that this is the right way to do it, but it's not working. And I don't want to use NSDate. That is a Object-C conversion, and that is a bad thing to do. And here it just says date.now. Why did I say something stupid like I just have to say import date? Nope. It should be part of Foundation. Foundation's the Apple framework that kind of includes everything. It's like System in Java, in System in .NET. Yeah, I'm not going to get stuck on this any longer here. Let's do this for right now. We'll make this a string, and I'll have to do this offline to figure out what's going on. That way we just don't sit here watching me grind my wheels over why this doesn't work. And we know that we can do it with a string then. Wait. Oh, come on. Really? Kotlin screwed me over again. That's the problem. The entire time, it's staring me right in the eyes. I have a Kotlin. I'm writing this code like it's Kotlin instead of Swift. I have to give it the type first before I can type it in. That's the entire problem. All right. Equals date. This is why I'm doing this stream, so I don't forget how to write Swift. That should fix it. So the problem is that you have to give it the type and then give it the validator type. So let's see here. Wow. Okay. Aaron's batting 0 today. Let's see here. So basically we take our constructor in, we set our initial property to the actual property there. That gets us our identifiable object that we can now use for a report. So let's see here. That fixes our first problem. We now have a report and an expense report instead. So let's close this out. That gets the expense report fixed. So now let's see here. We our sidebar, we don't even need these categories. We want to do something totally different. In our sidebar, we're going to have a user profile eventually listed, and then we'll have a horizontal line, and then we'll have a bunch of different navigation options that you can kind of select on, and then based on what you select, we'll go to a different screen. For right now, I think what we want to do is say, I don't want to get super complicated into that unless we have to. Let's make it so that we have a strut that gives us the different pages we can go to in our sidebar to start out with. And maybe that will get us there. So let's go into models, add a new file, go to Swift file, and we'll call this a navigation menu item. And we'll call this a, maybe we should just make this an enum. Should we do that? An enum. We'll call it, yeah, navigation menu item. And we'll say here that we have, first we have main, then we have developer, we have, what's going on here? No, it's not manager. Wait, what? Am I just, you know what? Let's have our ChatGPT do this for us. I'm writing in Kotlin, and I'm going to create a enum in Swift that has 4 options. Main, developer, replication, and sign out. What's it going to say the syntax is? Use case inside of Swift, that's right. Yeah, okay. We don't need the numbers. We'll say case replication, case sign out. And now we can basically, like what? This is exactly what it gives, right? Case main sign out, close. Oh, I bet you it doesn't need, yeah, it doesn't need commas. It's a mess when you use too many different languages. You have to try to remember all the syntax between them, to say the least. All right, let's see here. So, main developer application sign out. So that's going to be our thing that we can use, and we can keep pointing then to what the user's tapped on. We can pass that in, and we can say, okay, based on that, this is what we're going to render. So inside sidebar view, basically, we'll keep track of the current that current view equal, and we'll say navigation menu item dot main, and then we'll say body, and we'll say for right now. We'll need to draw all these out. We'll write some code to do that, but we want to get the ability to have content view work. So what we'd want to do to be able to say, we would have to tell content view. Actually, we would want to only have content view come up if it's at the main, and then the rest of them will have different views for. Let's make stub views for those so that we can get all this navigation stuff fixed. So then we can start getting some data in here. So let's make a new view. We need a view for developer. View not allow us to dynamically generate data for the database, and then we'll need another view. We'll need to call that view replication view. Oops, SwiftUI view. And this is the wrong file, so let's delete that and make a SwiftUI file. New file. We'll call this SwiftUI, and we want to go through here, and we want to call this developer view. There we go. Now we have developer view, we have replication view, we have detail view. We'll fix those in a second here. We've got content view, we've got sidebar. So now what we should be able to do is make a drawer that draws the did I really want to make those an enum though? Because I still need to make those print out on the screen. Let's see here. No, we can do that because we can do a switch here, so we'll absolutely do that. And we want to make those buttons probably, right? Well, let's start out with the basics, right? Let's not get ourselves overcomplicate things here. Let's just see if we can get the point where we get this fixed. So we'll want to basically draw in. now. Get our main view, keep one thing fixed at a time. So we're going to say here, then if this is it, we're going to say navigation link here. And content view, we need to bring in a category, which we don't have anymore. Let's comment out this code for right now because we don't need it. Comment out. Where is the commenting? Boy, they've changed so much in here. I don't remember where the heck it used to be. Comment selection, there it is. So it's slash and unslash. All right. What we want to do, basically be able to do here is just say bring in content view. And we don't need a category anymore. So because content view will be its own brains, it will be able to figure that out on its own. And let's see here, this is going to be our imports. And then we have to go fix content view because we no longer need a category. That should fix that. That will keep that from complaining at least. Alright, so let's see here. Can I find category and scope? It really wants category still. Let's see here. Let category equal fiction. It's because here, because we're saying. No, that's right. Category should be here. We're setting category here, so we don't need to set it. That should be fine. We may have to just toast this because it's not, the view proved that we got the navigation working, but I don't need to pass in data like this right now. And so because of that, this is getting pretty ugly. Let's see here. I got that closed, I got that here. So let's just go to content view and blow this out because we don't need books and stuff. I'll just basically do this. I'll just take this out here. That should fix that. So we'll just go back to sidebar and see if sidebar is now still mad. Let's rebuild because I think it's not seeing the build. Build for running. Let's see here. Checking chat. Build failed. Why did build fail now? We cannot find a book in scope. Yeah, because detail view thinks it needs one now. Let's just kill this and put this back to hello world again. Now that we know that navigation works, we can fix this in a second here. So that should fix that. What do we have here? What do you mean? Image. Where does that come from? I didn't even put that in. Let's see here. Where's our sidebar? Should just be able to be called without anything now. All three of these should just be able to be called by themselves. that should get us back to working. Let's build again. Sidebar view is saying it needs a category. Because I have a let statement here. Let's now go back and see whether or not we can get navigation working here. I'll have to preview. Let's go ahead and go here, see whether or not this will switch on current view. That's why. All right. I did not copy enough from our AI overloads, and because of that, I'm thinking for myself, and you can see what happens when you think for yourself. View cannot conform to... Oh. Yeah. I need to give some kind of thing that I can render. Printing something, let's just go text. Let's replace the print statement with text. We'll deal with this all in a second. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is get Combine working, because the problem will be we gotta pass a message between the sidebar to the main to tell what to swap out. That's going to be the problem, because it's not this person's job to do that. It would have to swap it out. I'm pretty sure on that. Let's see here. So it's a user at example.com, and then password would be pass12. I think that's right, password. So we have hello detail, we have hello world there, and then we have our expense report view. And this is that only navigation item we have, right? And it doesn't do anything right now because we don't have it set up wired up to do anything. So then detail would come up, and this is our content view, which would be our expense report view right now, technically speaking. So that's what we want. We need to swap out and tell it based on that. So we need to tell somebody to swap out the view when they select something other side of the expense report, right? So the very first thing we're going to say is, hey, yep, that makes sense. We're going to go, actually, that's probably a better way to do this, now that I think about it. If we think about it for a second, we go back to what our AI overloads told us to do with the, which is, I've kind of done it the same way before. If we go back to the main app code, right here, our expense reporter code. All right, you'll see here, this is what's basically routing us. And we take that in as a message. We say, hey, if this is authenticated, then we bring in this view. Otherwise, we bring in the authentication view, right? All right, Matt, I'll see you later, man. Take care. We need the same thing for the middle part. That's our content view, right? Because we want to swap that out. If a person clicks on developer, they're going to go to the developer view. If they're going to go to the main view, they're going to get the, the main expense report view. If they click on something else, they may get something else totally different. So we have to think about that for a second and say, okay, well, we got to be able to swap that out also, just like we're swapping this out. Well, the best way to do that is to have some kind of service like we had earlier handle that work for us. Like I said earlier, if we have services doing our job for us, then this becomes way easier. So if we go back to it, we're probably putting too much code in sidebar here. Sidebar's got way too much things. It probably just needs to call a service that says, hey, can you swap the view? And let the view swapper handle this. And then it can handle itself. So let's make a service to do that. Let's do a navigation service. It's a new file. We'll call this navigation service. And in navigation service, we basically need the same pattern that we did in navigation service, right? So we could just say here, we're copy this real quick. Actually, we need pass through also because we'll want to know when it changes. So we're going to go here. but we're going to change this to navigation service. And we also need to borrow some code here from authentication service on this. And what we're going to do is say here, but we're not going to have it as authenticated. We're going to say selected view. And that's going to equal this enum that we have. So 1 second here. But we need to, that should work. What are you doing here? Cannot, oh, we need to import Combine. All right, that should fix that. It can find it now, but we got to change this out because we need to use this enum that we came up with for the navigation menu item. And what we're going to do here then in our navigation service is say this is equal to a navigation service item. And then we can set that, right? So expected member name. Expected member name. That should work. All right. So what are we doing here? We're doing this because we need to be able to select a navigation item, but then be able to send a message out to somebody that says, hey, if this thing's changed, then I need to know about it and draw something different. And that's our goal of the navigation service. It's going to just keep track of that for us. And then so we should say set. Do we really need to set in this? Or I think we just use the property to set it, and then it would set it, and we don't need a method to do this. We're not Java developers, right? Let's go back to sidebar then. So what sidebar is going to do is send a message to, think about this for a second. We want only to show content view in there if from, so we actually need to change this from a different standpoint. It would be, where is it? It'd be the app's job to basically say, nope, it wouldn't be app job at all. Who's handling this? Main view's handling this. It's main view's job to say, I want a sidebar, a content view, and a detail view. Okay? And if this changes, it'd be its job to go through and say, we need to change this out based on that, right? So what would happen instead is we would have, just like we had in the app here, where we had the state here, right? So we're gonna make the state object just like we would there, but we'll put it in main view instead. So we'll make a state object here. We'll say this is going to be navigation service. And then we're gonna say this is a new navigation service. And we could even set the service, I think. Let's see here, what's it about now? Private can only be used in non-local scope. Oh, yeah, they set it outside the body. What we should probably be able to do is have that also have a init method on it that defaults selected view to equals navigation item menu item dot main. Oh. ChatGPT was our GitHub Copilot was going to tell me to automatically put that code in. Let's see here. No, should be, do I have to do self dot? Expected for initializer value. Can assign navigation item to type. No, that should work. I mean, why else will be? Am I forgetting something, chat? In SwiftUI with enums, it should be navigation menu item is the type, and I should be able to say main to say that that's the type of thing I want. I think what's happening here is the problem is that, let's do it like this. That should work. We should be able to say that selected view is going to equal a main by default, because that's what we define it. We're making it the main, and then we can set it. If we change it, we'll basically be able to then send a message through of it. That should work right there. We shouldn't need the init method. All right, let's see here. So main is going to then now do some work here, because it's going to say, so if we need to switch on we want to switch on the navigation service dot selected view. Let's accept this and see what it does. And then we need a case, right? So we'd have to say case. We'd say dot main. And we'd say there, and then we'd say case dot developer, and we'd call developer view here. Do this, and then we had replication. Did we make a we did make a replication view. So then we'd say case dot replication. Let's see. Well, it looks like it needs a colon after this in Swift. Let's see here, and then let's say here. We'd say this will be replication view, right? Replication view. And switch, but yeah, we have to give it all the options. And then sign out. This is where it's going to be really interesting. Case dot sign out. Well, this is where we actually want to set. We would have to send in to this the authentication view. So from expense reporter app here, see where we have this auth service. So we want to send the auth service into this. So we're going to say authentication service. Actually, we're just going to copy this code right here, because we need to keep the same variable in memory, right? Because this has already been initialized, and so we need to know that, right? So if we go to authentication view, where's our authentication view at? Here it is. Let's move that into our view folder so we can find it faster. And if we look here, authentication view, we also set right here the service where it is reserved, right? So we're going to do the same thing here. So let's grab that into our main view. And the reason why we needed a main view, because we want to be able to set the user authenticated to be null, right? To be no, they're not authenticated, so that it'll kick them back to this. Yeah, we're making some progress here, real quick here. So we're going through. What I'm trying to get right now is like a structure for the app, like navigation working, because then we can start filling in all the blocks. But if we can get like the core navigation structure working, building this app gets superly simple, because then we're just building views for each one of it, calling the database, throwing some values in, and it's done. So we look here, what we want to do here is when sign out happens, we don't want to call a view at all. We actually want to say authentication service dot authentication service dot is authenticated equals false. What do we have here? And let's see here. Boy, I'm gonna need to hack this right now. Let's just put text signing out. Oh yeah, we have to do this. And I think that would be all the cases. What's it made about now? There we go. Oh, what do we have here? so the problem is, oh, main view, I have to, how did I do this in authentication view? I think I just sent a new one of them and sent it there. Yeah. Let's do that first. Our sidebar, our main view. So we have to do that with our previewer. So that'll fix the previewer, because now the previewer will have the ability to see the authentication service. Now the other problem we have here is that we want to have a message that comes up that says they're signing out when you click on it, but also then zap them to the login page. And since we have to conform to a view here, we're going to have to put this in a wrapper of some sorts here. And I'm trying to think about what's the best way to solve this. Because I want some business logic to happen when we get to this case. Can I just handle it in the navigator? Huh. Do I really need to do that? Because in here, I could just tell it to, nope, because it needs to do it here also, right? And this is, Sidebar's job's not to figure it out. It's just to draw stuff. Let's be very clear, right? Sidebar's job is just to draw stuff. It should not be involved in this whole process of like figuring out what the hell should happen. Like in Kotlin, I know how the answer to this is. Yeah, it's hot out there today, folks. It's like over 100 degrees. I think the heat index here in Alabama is like 104. We're getting Texas's heat right now, and it's not great. It's not great at all. I'm trying to think of this, how to run this in scope of without calling a closure. Because really what we want to have happen is we want this thing to just go away. Main should just basically set this to false. The person that sits above it should say, oh crap, this is set to false. I'm gonna log out here. I'm gonna get rid of this stuff and adios here. Maybe let's just do this. Let's do this. I have an idea here. Let's go back to main view, sidebar view. And if they click sign out, we'll make this a button. And then we need an action, right? And the action would be, but we'll have to send this also, the sidebar view needs to know from, let's say action, like that, yeah, right? Come on. Yeah, and this is then labeled, right? Let's see here. Can't convert type. Oh, I think it needs to be called text, right? Or is it? Let's try maybe label is my answer here. Because this would close out button action. Okay. Yeah. This has got over create a button that sets a value in Swift. It's like this is like the equivalent of I'm right there. Oh, what am I, an idiot? So used to Jetpack Compose, and so everything's a little different in syntax here. So button text would be this, and then the action. So this is the action that runs, and then you put the text inside of this. All right, I got it. Let's go back here. So action would be here. And then you'd have this here, and this would be text. Sign out. But this is a sidebar. We actually don't need, we're going to have the person above this do this. So all we need to do is make links for each one of this. So we don't even switch this. What we need is this. We need something like this. And we need this to be in a V stack. We'll probably have to put some padding on it and stuff like that, right? But let's just make this super easy on ourselves. I don't remember the damn indent keyboard shortcut. If somebody in chat remembers the indentation keyboard shortcut, let me know. I tried, I know it's Control A here, but I thought it was under editor and it was under, I want to reformat the document. Is it balance delimiters that does it? It is. Right? Did that do it? Balance delimiters? I think balance delimiters did it. Oh, it's California. It's 73. Wow. I wish it was 73 here. My air conditioner is set to 70 right now. So where is the camera here? It's set to 70. But yet on my desk, it's 76. My air conditioner can't keep up with how hot it is outside. I'm in the studio, so you know, obviously I've got a split level unit and stuff, and that kind of helps a little bit. But yeah, it's and I bought a bigger air conditioning unit than what my square footage was needed for my office. So I knew that I was going to need something a little bit bigger because it gets hot here in Alabama, but I just could not dictate that it was going to be this hot out whatsoever. All right, let's think about this for a second here. We don't even really need, do we need, let me think about this for a second. So sidebar is going to set a message. Sidebar doesn't even need any of this stuff. This is what needs to happen. I've completely got this all screwed up because what will happen is that main view will have the navigation service, right? So what will happen is sidebar gets the gets a copy of it sent to it. So we just say sidebar gets just like the we did with the authentication service, right? So we're going to say we're going to tell sidebar that it's going to take in a navigation service. So you know, kind of like if we think about it. It's going to be a state object, right? We're going to pass it in, just like we did in the observable here. So we're going to go in. It's not a state object. We're going to need to observe it. So we'll say observable object var navigation service, and then we'll set it to that. So let's go into sidebar and say we're going to have a observable object var navigation service Okay, we're going to observe that because really sidebar is just going to call navigation service and it should handle all this because that's not its job to handle. This is too much work for it to do. It's not its job. So let's see here. So yes, so then we just say navigation service equals navigation service. Like that. So now sidebar will know all the stuff that's going on here. And so that we'll let sidebar, we'll let this handle how to draw stuff. Okay, this is its job to be able to do that. And let's see here. So this should still work. Main view should still work. Sidebar needs its thing updated here so that if it has one, it's going to make a new navigation service. So we're going to say navigation service, navigation service to make a new one, just so the preview still works. And what should happen now is instead we're going to these all just need to be buttons. Because the action here would be to set navigation service dot selected view equals dot sign out. what should happen is if we set the selected view equals to sign out, we also set let me think about this for a second. So if we set the sign out, then what happens is navigation service should be able to we go back to main. What should happen is authentication service needs to know that if the case is sign out, then we need to call here. We would say authentication service dot is authenticated. It's false. And that should log us out. But that's the problem I have right now, where the UI, I'm trying to think here, how do we handle it? So it's, oh, you're in Atlanta, really? I used to live in Atlanta for about 8 years. I lived over, well, we've lived in so many different places. We lived in, me and my wife, we lived in Marietta for a while. I lived in Alpharetta, and then we had a house for about 5 years in Cumming, Georgia, which is about, I don't know, about an hour outside the city. It's right next to Lake Lanier, the only lake that Atlanta's near. I love Atlanta. Always is in my heart. We moved here to Alabama. My in-laws live here, and my father-in-law's not had the greatest health, so we kind of moved here just to be closer to family and stuff. But love Atlanta. Man, I do miss some of the stuff that Atlanta has to offer. It's a pretty big city. You can find anything really quickly there in Atlanta. So I live out in the boonies, out in the middle of nowhere now, so it's a little bit different here. So I think I need to solve this problem, but let's see if I can solve the rest of them first, and I'll come back to this. I like solving small problems instead of big problems. So we can go back to sidebar and just get about all this working except for that. That's going to be the biggest thing. No, we can get it working. We can get it working. What am I talking about here? We just need authentication view inside a sidebar. Because sidebar has actions for each one of the buttons. What am I thinking about here? This is totally easy. So all we have to do is in here, when we send it navigation service, we also send it authentication service. And then we just need to go in the sidebar and take one of those also. So let's just take it here. Say we're going to have an observable object also here. Boy. Watch this. So if we know about both these, now what we can say is that when you sign out here, we'll say that the navigation's here, but we'll also say authentication service dot is authenticated equals false. Problem solved. That should trigger now to the code that basically that runs the app, the app manager, which is this expense reporter app. You'll see here anytime this changes, it gets mad and it says, no, we can't do that anymore. We're going to go through, we're going to automatically switch you back to the login view. And of course, we'll have to put some code here. Actually, this is a good point here. To do, burn everything. When I say burn everything, this is a fire sale. Get rid of tokens, connections to database, etc. We need to come back. This is gonna be like, we'll probably have to make some kind of manager function that goes through that says dump everything, because when they sign out, we want no more stuff in memory. We want from a security bound to say everything's gone in the world. So we'll probably actually take this action here, make a function call that calls and then do all that work. That way we can have it like in one function. And I think we can get rid of this too, because I don't think we need this anymore. We'll figure that out as we go along here. We probably make a function that do this long term, but for right now, did I accidentally delete too many? Did I accidentally delete too many parameters? What do we got going here? Extraneous. Do I have too many brackets? That's what's going on. Nope. Missing argument. Yes, it'll need the authentication service also. So because we added it, we'll have to say authentication service equals authentication service, and then pass it in parameters to that, and that should fix the previewer. Sidebar takes in an authentication service and a navigation service. Why is it, man? What that? What? That shouldn't work. It's not a singleton. Well, all right. Let's try to finish this UI code and see if we can get this to build, right? To at least get it to the point where it does what I think it should do. So, in this world, we basically don't even need this. We just need a button that for each one of these, and then we basically say but we don't even have to do this. We say navigation service, selected view. I say main. Actually, we would say if do we have the current selected view here, right? Yeah. If current view equals main, we have to basically disable the button if it's currently set to main. But we can handle that after, right? Let's just see if we can get the... I'll get ahead of myself too many times here. And then the code, we can't get it to the point where we can debug. We want to get the code to the point where we can debug. That's the most important thing, right? That we can see that we actually have something working. Current view wouldn't be this. Current view would be whatever navigation service says. So we don't even need that because if we think about it for a second, because current view doesn't bias anything, because really the navigation service is what keeps track of the current view, not us. And this would be, we would tell it to render the developer. Let's see. And then we basically have replicator and then sign out, right? And this would be replicated. And then that should be the last one. We can take these to-dos out because it really doesn't matter. Okay, so that should, by theory, get us a sidebar. That's giving us a navigation menu. Let's try select A and then go to editor and then go back to, I think it was called balanced eliminators. And that should at least get everything to line up right. Nope, it didn't do that at all. Boy, let's ask ChatGPT. How do you reformat code? Wow. What? So it's September 2021 is what last time it was done. Yeah, we're not setting up Swift formatter today. I mean, I only have like 15 minutes left in the stream. We're just not going down that road. That's longer than 15 minutes. There is a way to do this. Somebody in chat told me on Sunday how to do this, and I don't remember what it was. To get your I swear it was like I thought it was Shift I or Command I, but that didn't work. What's this? Nope. That's not it. Oh well. God, that's gonna bug me till the end of time. Control I to indent. Yeah, but I don't want to indent. I want to reforce this to re-indent. I think Control I would just do me another indent, right? Oh, that didn't do it at all. That builds. Oh wait, that did do it. 1 second here. All right, you're my hero. I keep hitting Command instead of Control. There it goes. All right, let's see what happens here. So we have 2 errors though. Placeholder instead of code. Yeah, that's what I had parentheses in there, and then it kind of freaked out. Where's the other placeholder? Try building now. Cannot call value. I'm just saying set the authentication service. Did I spell it wrong? Equal to authentication service and just call the constructor on it, the init method. Nope. Why is it so pissed here? Maybe I had it spelled wrong. There, I had it spelled wrong. So let's go through. Well, we gotta fix that too. Password. I think that's the password. There's our menu, and if we go to developer, that should be developer. But we can't tell. Let's go to sign out and see if sign out gets us out. Okay, sign out worked. There we go. So sign out should have got us out of the stack, and we should be back to the point where we're back at the authentication page. Now, let's see here. We've got about 10 minutes left here, or 15 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. Let's do some more AI fun, folks. I think that'd be a good idea, right? I'm going to do something that I haven't done on the stream before. How many people have heard of Midjourney? Midjourney is a image generation AI. We're going to tell it. Now, you can't see it on my screen right now because I have to have Discord open. I don't have Discord installed here. I could probably go to the website, couldn't I? Let's just... I want you guys to see how cool this is. Let's just go to Discord and log in. I should have my login saved. Let me go to the be right back message, and so I can log in real quick here. I am human, and I'm still here. I am just trying to, let's see here. It's wanting me to identify bears. Since when did we have this to define that we're humans? We have to pick bears? That seems terrible. Welcome to Discord. No, not welcome. I'm already a member. Oh, this is going horrible for me. I should just told it to download the app, shouldn't I? So, no, I don't want to create a server. I don't even want to do that. I just want to log in. I'm going to just download it. Discord is, or excuse me, this whole Midjourney is pretty badass awesome. And we could use it to generate some icons for the app and stuff, and then we can get it so they auto log in for us. There's a method to my madness here. The theory, what I want to do is I want to make it so I don't have to type that username and password in anymore. I want to have it auto fill in for me. So if we can get a little image on there that we turn into a button, we click on it, then it'll automatically log in for us. That's just going to save me a bunch of time and patience here. So let's see here. I need to log in though. Let me switch account. Add an account. I am human. It really doesn't think that, oh, because I typed in Gmail wrong. Let's see what's going on here. Ah, it's logging in. All right, here we go. Let's go back to laptop, and hopefully you guys should be able to see this. Let me go to Midjourney real quick here and generate an image here. Let's see, imagine. So this is how it works. We say imagine, and it gives us a prompt. And now we say a company logo for the Acme Corporation for their mobile expense report app. And we'll just have this thing generate us a logo. And then we could use that for the app icon also for the app, if it's good enough, right? So here's the theory. We're to use AI for all this, right? I mean, why wouldn't we just have AI also generate the freaking logo for our app, right? That seems like it makes sense. So this usually takes a few seconds here because I do have... it's a service you pay for. I use this for D&D a lot. I'm a dungeon master, and I generate a lot of the bad guys based on this. And you'll see here I've got all kinds of like vampires and stuff. I do a campaign with vampires and demons and a bunch of other stuff. So a lot of the NPCs or the non-player characters and stuff, I just use Midjourney for that. So I'm not an artist. Let's let it do its job there. It's waiting to start. Oh yeah, Midjourney is awesome. It's like an AI for artists, right? You could just give it a bunch of things and it'll just generate you images. This usually takes a couple minutes, so let's go ahead and close that out for right now and go back to our app while we're waiting for this, and see where we kind of sit here. So one, we know our navigation here is okay, but boy, does that text look bad, right? Let's go back to the iPad here. This expense reporter. Let's go through and run this again. Let's see where we can improve here a little bit. We want this menu to be much bigger, much bigger. So we want some padding in between that too, because that's not cool. Let's actually run this on the iPhone and see how bad it works. Let's go to iPhone 14. Which one do I have open? Simulator. This is just a regular 14? It's not a Pro? Okay. Must be an iPad 14. And let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. There we go. User at example.com and password 12. Yeah, see, it's still even for this. Well, but this is broken. It should never be there. It should have... All right, so we had a bug because it should have known that expense report was the very first thing clicked, and it should have... so sign-in's working. Well, I'm glad we tested this. The problem is it should know that by default, the main view should come up, which is not the sidebar. So let's see what the heck's going on here in our code. So if we go to main view, let's go to expense reporter. I think what happens is we don't set it to the current view anywhere. Midjourney's still working on that image. So let's see here. So the problem would be in main view. We'd have to somehow say what the navigation service is set to. And so navigation service out of the box should set itself to main. And then what should happen then in main view is we should say, in case main, it should generate content in detail view. So let's see what happens here. Let's put a breakpoint in and debug this. And see what's going on here. So, oh boy, I can't wait for you guys to see this. Let's make sure that's the right password. That's the right password. So what is the current value of selective view? Where's our watchers at? Discord don't care. Where's my breakpoint? Nope. Where's my watcher window at? That's tests. Wait. No, it has a watcher. You can't tell me it doesn't have a watcher. It's down here, isn't it? Yeah, here's where it is. Boy, it's been way too long. Where is myself? Here's the watcher. So let's see what navigation service is set to. Yeah, but I just want to add a watch. Where is it? Debug, step in, step out. Come on. I should be able to set this. What's the Xcode on how to set a watcher? Anybody in chat know how to add a watcher to Xcode? Because this used to be a button, I thought. You shouldn't have to do this. Okay, so it's set to main right now. But you should be able to put a watch in where it only gives you variables that you watch. And debugger, you shouldn't have to like navigate through all these. So we should have content view and then detail view come up. Wait, where are we? We're in main view. What is app doing again? Okay, so the main view. That's right. So in main view, the problem is that we're not doing no sidebar should be I know what I'm doing wrong. It should be navigation split view, right? Not navigation view. Sidebar. And then there should be sidebar should equal sidebar. Then what should happen is this should be on this, it would say content is equal to, not context, content is equal to this. And then we'd say detail is equal to this. That's the bug. And the developer, it would just be why do we need a do in here? Let's stop this real quick here. So the problem is that we're not setting the right views to the right thing. 1 second here. Midjourney's done. Oh, where's Discord at? So this is how it works. You basically get these, and then you could pick from these images. So I don't know what that has to do with expenses. Do you? Chat? Man. Yeah, you can have watches. God, I used to add this all the time in Xcode, and I gotta look it up. Man, this is super weird that I told it I wanted an expense report logo. But that's what it generated. Imagine expense report app logo. Colorful. Imagine. Oop. Imagine a, let's see here. Imagine a colorful expense report logo for a mobile app. We'll try that and see. It'll take a couple minutes for that. Let's see here. Back to our code here. So the problem is that navigation split view requires 3 things. It requires a sidebar, a content, and a... I think I have to do this outside of this, don't I? Because I would have to set the views outside of it and then have those as pointers, right? I'm just thinking about this because in Swift, that's not going to work. Open a debug area via view, debug area, activate console, right click, add expression. Yeah, I think you could just do that now from just right clicking and hit add expression, but then that usually requires GDB syntax, the GNU debugger usually, I thought, or the LLVM debugger. Thought it was different. I thought there was a way to do this just automatically now. That's what I thought. So my problem here is I want to switch these out based on what something is selected. And the problem is that the switch statement's not going to calculate out because it's happening in the middle of the navigation split view. And so that's the problem I'm running into here. Labeled block needs a do. No, it doesn't. That's not the code for split view. If you want a 2 detail view, you could just do content. Each one of these should be content and detail. I hate duplicating code. I think I know how to make this work, but I don't like the idea of it. Let's see if I can get this working, and then we'll figure out a way to make it so that I don't have to do this. So what I think happens is we'd have to do this like this. We would switch on the navigation view. We'd say main, and if it's main, we would say that we want a split view with content and detail like this, and then we would close the split view. And that'd be the case for that, right? And then we would say here, if it was here, we would want a split view also, but our content, we would have no content, we'd only have detail. Dynamic parent could need split navigation view, and then we'd say sidebar is this. Oh, we have to close. Then we would wrap content in and then detail in, and that would give us the closure to, the closure would automatically done because this is closures. All right, that works. That's the syntax we want. And the difference would be, if we copy this, put it over here. I don't like copy and paste, and that's why I'm starting to get angry already thinking about this, is that there would be no content view. You'd only have detail view. Detail view would be the developer view. But this wouldn't be it. It'd be developer view instead. Wait. Yes, we'll make a developer view for right now. We may have to go back and fix this later, but because developer view, technically speaking, can have multiple screens associated with it. But for the sake of argument, it should be that, and replicating views would be the same thing. And this would be the difference between 2 and 3 pane navigation is what we're talking about here. Let's just check this out and see if this works. That should, by theory, fix iPhone. And then it's saying I have an extra. I have it somehow an extra. And then what's this? 1 second. Control A and then I to reindent. Man, chat, you guys are awesome. Thanks, Nick. That fixed it, I think. So let's go ahead and try this in iPhone now. And then I'll show you these images it came up with. Oh boy. User at example.com and then password 12. And let's see here. Yeah, so what you should be able to do is right click here and just say, where is it? It is, I thought you could right click. It's not fold. I thought you could add a symbol watcher here. I know you can go DB and you could just type in the command there to do it, right? I mean that's the environment override simulate location. That's the vertical view. And of course, I could always just go into here and then select it, but it's like I should be able to do, oh, here it is. Jeez, oh Pete. So right here's the watcher. Good Lord. That's awesome. Oh, geez. Xcode crashes. Womp, womp, womp. You find the watcher and then it breaks. Hey, we had the watcher. We found where it is. It's okay. I was gonna say, wait a minute. I know for a fact you could add a watcher in, and what the watcher should do is should just watch it while it's in memory, no matter what. Yeah, man, it's beta. I mean, okay, let's give Xcode a break here. We are running a beta. You know, it's not finished, and some of my crap is pretty bad. It's still not right though. It's still not right because it should have known that content view should be up by default. So let's see what happens here. Wait, why is it skipping over? To sign out. I hit dispense report. It should be, what's its selected value? See, that's aggravating. Like, I'm so used to, like, in Visual Studio, in Android Studio, if you just hover over something, it should give you the value, right? And here it's not. And we have to, once again, go to here to find out what its value is. So it's at its third revision, and it's at main. So then it should be running this code. So if we go step into it, it should set navigation split view. And then it goes to case sign out. We have to have like a bracket set wrong here. That has to be what's going on here. So this syntax should be navigation split view. This should close detail. This should close content. This should close split view. Well, let me do scope of a case. Like in other languages. Nope. That's a negative error. Why are we leaking through our case statement, though? That's the one thing I don't understand. Is that this should just work. We shouldn't get sidebar. Content should be content. Detail should be set to detail. The first view coming in should automatically be then sidebar. And an iPhone, this should work like the Notes app. One second here. Let me show you what Discord came up with, by the way. So here's our expense report icons that it came up with. Some kind of clock. The number 4. I don't even know what this means. What are these values? This is so psychedelic for the expense reporter icon. I just said make me an expense report. I expect like a $sign or something in it, right? For money or some kind of currency? Huh. A colorful, so it did colorful, I have to admit that. Expense report logo. I don't think our AI art overlords are really going to overtake the art community anytime soon, because none of these say expense report to me. Imagine colorful company logo of the Acme Corporation for a mobile app. We'll just take expense report out of it and just see if we can get it like an Acme logo, and then maybe we'll just Photoshop in like a $sign or something in it, something simple. We'll see if we can get this Midjourney to give us some kind of image that actually is usable for this. So in UIKit, you can tell it which view to start out with in UI split view. And I think that's my problem, because I bet you if we run this back on iPhone, it works. Our iPad, I bet you this works. So let's go put it on an iPad Air, actually, something like that. Let's go run it on an iPad Air, and I bet you this works. And I bet you the problem is that it doesn't know which view to start on. It's basically defaulting to the sidebar view instead of the content view, because it should know what the content view to draw, and sidebar should be a logo only. So let's see here. And let's flip this over, because that's how iPads are supposed to render, right? User at example.com, and then password 12. Change this. We'll click play on that, and then take a look here. Yep, so this is rendering right. So if I go to developer, let's take this breakpoint out right now and try it again. Sign out. Let's make sure that those views are the right views, though, because I just put hello world in each one of those. So let's go to replication view and say replication view. And then over here in developer view, I want to say developer view. And then for detail view, this would be expense report detail. And then content view is actually the expense report itself. That's how we want this to work. So let's try this again and make sure that each one of those is labeled right, because if that's the case, then we know iPad works and we just have to fix mobile. Example.com. I think I did that wrong. I did. It's supposed to be a 0 here. We're going to get that logo in so we don't have to do this anymore. There we go. So expense reports and expense detail. That's right. If we go down here to developer, we should just get developer view and sidebar. And if we close sidebar, we should get full developer view. Replication should do the same thing. Expense report should get us back to 3 columns where we have basically sidebar, expense, and detail. Boy. Oh, you're supposed to swipe to get rid of the menu. I think I knew that. And then you can just click the icon here. All right. This is kind of working. We should be able to swipe out if I remember right. Yep, you can swipe out and swipe back in then. A little tricky on the mouse, but you can swipe out and swipe back in to get rid of the menu and bring the menu up. Okay, so iPad's working. And if we hit sign out, we should have it working. iPhone is not. So in iPhone, the problem is we're not getting the navigation to respect the fact that content view should be the first thing that comes up, the expense report view. So now if we go back to iPhone, the problem is when did navigation split view come out? This is this model's last update was in 2021. So if it's a newer API, it's not going to know the answer to it. Example.com, example.com, and then password. Okay. Yeah. See, the menu should be coming up. It should be the detail view, which it doesn't know how to render now. And now it just went black. That's not great. So we have an issue where I need to figure out like why this is not. So I think this is called the split visibility, which show I think that shows the bars. There's a cookbook for this. Oh, it's a video. Oh, geez, oh, beats. So Apple's got a thing that they did at WWDC on this. It looks like, and looks like there's a whole video on this that I might have to watch. We might have to do this on the next stream and figure this out. But here it is. This is the cookbook for navigation, and supposedly, this is what I want. Split view, and I want a detail. Yep, I want 3 column, but I want it like the Mail app, basically, where if we go to, well, actually, let's go to even better. We want it like the Notes app. If we were to go to Notes app, is it installed by default on the simulator? I don't see notes. Reminders is installed. It's almost the same pattern, right? Don't allow. Continue. Not now. Continue. Not now. See, it's got navigation structure where you can basically go into your reminders. This is only 2 pane instead of 3. Notes is 3 pane. But I want the email kind of view. Does files also have 3 view? No, files is. So it looks like it's notes, the only one that I know of that does. That's weird. Wait, didn't notes come on this over here though? Oh, I showed you on the Mac how it worked on the Mac. That's what it was. Notes. I want it like this, where we have a view here, view here, view here, and then this should collapse, and it should be set to this view by default. That's what I'm looking to do. On iPhone, when you launch on iPhone, but it's not. It's working on iPad, but not iPhone. And I remember in UI split view, I used to have to set the preference for this based on the device type. You would think that they would have this really easy to do now, though. A new size such as iPhone or Apple Watch, navigation switches collapse into a single stack. Typically, SwiftUI automatically chooses the view to show on top of the single stack based on content. For custom navigation experience, you could provide more information to help SwiftUI use that. Create a state value of the column split view column and then pass the bind to the state property initializer. So it's saying, okay. I think we have the answer here, but sometimes you just have to read a doc. So let's see if this works. So in main view, we're going to say, it's saying make a state variable for this, set it equal to this, and then pass that in, I think, right? So what the documentation said, to the split view for preferred column. And let's do this. Let's see if this works. And we'll probably have to do that for all three of them so it doesn't screw up. This is why I hate cut and pasting. We may need to make a factory that does this for us. The factory just returns it based on what we selected. But a factory solve that though, really. Let's try this now on iPhone and see if we tell it what to do, if it'll have a better idea. Example.com password 12. That did work, actually. The only problem is that now it's not navigating to... Okay, so that worked from iPhone standpoint, but the navigation's not working now. So let's switch this to content. And that should fix that at least. Yeah, I already said that. Let's try this again. An iPhone, this at least should fix it, but now the problem is the buttons don't work because the buttons are based on telling main and having the navigation stack work. User at example.com. Then password 12. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, actually, I'll be coding tonight for a couple hours for the... I got a code for both East Coast, or for Europe and also for the West Coast people, right? So I'll probably be on like at 9 o'clock Central Time for an hour trying to work on this app again. And then outside of that, obviously my schedule is I'll be on Thursday again as I'm working on this. But I appreciate you stopping by. I do have to also, I'm running a little late here. My wife's going to get really mad. So I probably should end the stream. I'm supposed to be ended a while back. So I wanted to end on a high note, not a low note. Well, I've got the iPhone kind of sort of working now in the sense that user at example.com and password 12. This works. It gives me my expense reports. This is what I want. But this icon should be totally different. It should have been like in the Mail app or the Notes app, which it's not. Where is my iPhone? Right here. Let me check real quick here. Oh, my wife is messaging me that I'm supposed to be doing something to the dogs. No, I guess it does. So my iPhone, the Mail app, does have the back button up there in the upper right corner. So I guess that does work. Okay. So now we just have to figure out why the navigation stack is not getting called properly. And I think this will get resolved. And I think for that, the answer is that we have to do, we can't do buttons in iPhone. We're going to have to do navigation links is my guess. I know how to do some navigation controllers, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's the answer. I'm probably going to watch this Apple video that Apple has this cookbook on how to do a navigation. I'll probably read that real quick and do some more of that tonight. So appreciate you joining the stream here. I'm going to turn it off for now. Obviously, this will be video on demand on YouTube. Watch the next one on YouTube to see the answer to how we're going to get this working on an iPhone. Appreciate everybody for showing up. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you guys either tonight or on Thursday.